This is the true story of Africa, beyond the textbooks, raw, powerful, and unforgettable. Let's go all the way back, not hundreds, but thousands of years, because before any European ship ever touched African shores, there was ancient Egypt. The Nile didn't just feed crops, it fed an entire civilization. The pyramids weren't just tombs, they were statements of power, math, and belief that have lasted over 4,000 years. And it wasn't just Egypt. South of it was Nubia, the forgotten neighbor. While Egypt built pyramids in Giza, Nubians built their own in Meroe. In fact, there are more pyramids in Sudan than in Egypt. Crazy, right? Nubia had its own powerful queens and kings, its own writing system, and was known for its fierce archers. The kingdom of Kush even ruled over Egypt at one point. Imagine that. African rulers ruling ancient Egypt, but people barely talk about that. And while the Nile civilizations were thriving in the northeast, the west was also making waves. Let's talk about Ghana. No, not the modern-day country, we're talking about the ancient Ghana Empire. Way back in the 6th century, it became one of the richest empires in the world. How? Gold. Tons of it. Ghana controlled the gold and salt trade routes that stretched across the Sahara. They didn't just dig it up, they taxed every ounce that passed through. And people came from all over to trade. But Ghana didn't last forever. Eventually, it gave way to the Mali Empire, and this is where things get wild. Have you ever heard of Mansa Musa? If not, you're missing out. He was the ruler of Mali in the 1300s and is considered the richest person to have ever lived, richer than Elon, Bezos, everyone. His wealth came from Mali's gold, and when he went on a pilgrimage to Mecca, he gave away so much gold that he caused inflation in multiple cities. Imagine being so rich you wreck entire economies without trying. But Mali wasn't just about gold, it was a hub of learning. The city of Timbuktu had one of the greatest libraries in the world, with thousands of manuscripts on science, religion, math, and law. Scholars from around the world came to study there, a center of knowledge, built in Africa. Eventually, the Songhai Empire took over, and they didn't just take over, they dominated. With a powerful army and smart leadership, Songhai controlled more land than even Mali did, but like every empire, it eventually declined. Still, it left behind a legacy of African governance, trade, and culture that doesn't get nearly enough credit. Now here's where the tone shifts. Fast forward to the 15th century, and European ships start showing up. At first, it was just trade, but soon, it became something else: colonization, exploitation, and the transatlantic slave trade, one of the darkest chapters in human history. Over 12 million Africans were taken across the ocean in brutal conditions, families torn apart, cultures disrupted, entire regions depopulated. And this wasn't just a few years, this went on for centuries. Europeans carved up the continent like it was a cake. They called it the scramble for Africa. But there was no fairness in it. It was raw greed. At the Berlin Conference in 1884, European powers literally sat around a table and divided Africa without a single African voice in the room. Imagine that, your home, your land, being handed out like property while you had no say. The British took vast territories from Egypt to South Africa. The French claimed massive parts of West Africa. Belgium, yes, tiny Belgium, took the Congo and ran it like a brutal corporation. Millions died under their rule. Forced labor, violence, and terror were common. But Africa wasn't just sitting there. All across the continent, people resisted. There were uprisings, protests, and even full-on wars. In Ethiopia, Emperor Menelik II defeated the Italian army at the Battle of Adwa in 1896. It was a huge moment, an African nation defeating a European power. Ethiopia stayed independent while the rest of the continent was colonized. Even in the heart of colonization, cultures survived. Languages, music, art, and stories kept traditions alive. And over time, the resistance grew. Then came the 20th century, and things started to shift. After World War II, Europe was weak, and the winds of independence were blowing. One by one, African countries fought for and won their freedom. Ghana was the first in 1957, led by Kwame Nkrumah. His message was simple: Africa for Africans. Other nations followed: Nigeria, Kenya, Algeria, Senegal, and more. Some got independence peacefully, others had to fight hard, like in Algeria, where a brutal war with France killed hundreds of thousands, or in South Africa, where apartheid kept the black majority under white rule for decades. But even apartheid eventually fell. Thanks to decades of resistance and the leadership of people like Nelson Mandela, South Africa transformed. Mandela spent 27 years in prison and came out to lead the country as president, not with revenge, but with reconciliation. Still, independence didn't mean instant success. Many African nations faced new challenges. Borders drawn by Europeans didn't match ethnic or cultural lines. Civil wars broke out. Dictators rose. Corruption became a problem. And the Cold War didn't help. The US and USSR turned Africa into a chessboard, backing different sides in local conflicts. But that's not where the story ends. Today, Africa is rising. Cities like Lagos, Nairobi, and Johannesburg are turning into tech and business hubs. Nigeria has one of the biggest film industries in the world, Nollywood. African music is now global. Artists like Burna Boy and Tems are topping charts worldwide. And young people are leading the way. Over 60% of Africa's population is under 25. That's a lot of energy, ideas, and change. Yes, problems remain: poverty, political instability, climate change, but don't mistake that for failure. This is a continent that survived colonization, slavery, and exploitation, and it's still standing. People are building startups, designing apps, running movements, telling stories. The same land that gave us ancient pyramids and gold kingdoms is now producing coders, creators, and changemakers. And here's the thing: Africa's history isn't just African history, it's world history. It shaped the modern world in more ways than most people realize. And now, it's shaping the future. So the next time someone tries to tell you Africa was behind or uncivilized, remember Mansa Musa. Remember the libraries of Timbuktu. Remember the warriors of Nubia, the architects of Egypt, the freedom fighters, the artists, the thinkers. Remember that history didn't happen to Africa. Africa made history.